Hello everybody, I'm Rhonda. Welcome back to my studio. Today I just wanted to address something that I see a lot in the art groups that I'm part of. Quite often, especially if it's a group that also includes beginners, I see a lot of people who are afraid to post their work, who are afraid to ask for advice. They think that everybody else is so much better than them. They struggle with that. So I actually have 5 things that I like to tell beginners and people new to art about their work. And so this is something really important. These are my 5 things that will help you get ahead as an artist. Number 1, do not compare yourself to others. We are each on our own journey. So what one person's journey might be may be completely different than yours. They may have access to different resources. They may have access to different types of materials, that kind of thing. And we each have things that we focus on. So for example, I've spent a lot of my time previous to this focusing on drawing, whereas now I'm more focused on painting. And so my drawing skills over the years have increased to a certain level, but my painting skills are at an earlier spot in my art career. So you're on your own journey. Do not compare yourself to others. Number 2, when does a beginner stop being a beginner? This is something I see a lot in different groups. Like, this is supposed to be a group for beginners. Why do I not see any beginners? Now, one reason is because a lot of people are afraid to post, but one of the other big things is that you can't define when a person is still a beginner versus when they're more advanced. It's up to that person to define. So for example, for me, I would consider myself intermediate in, say, acrylics, because I've done a lot more of it. I would consider myself fairly advanced in my drawing skills, but in watercolor, which I only started in January of 2020, after not having touched it since high school, I would consider myself still a beginner. However, I have also spent a lot of time studying and learning and that sort of thing. So it's very difficult to define when a beginner stops being a beginner and moves up to intermediate. So just keep that in mind, that you don't know what somebody else's past is. You don't know what their experience is. So trying to define who's a beginner and who's not is not a very easy task. So the third point is that art is actually a skill that can be learned. So there are 2 schools of thought that a lot of people have, 2 mindsets. One is that you're born with a certain amount of talent and that's all you're ever going to have, and so if it's not as good as you want it to be, that's tough luck. The other school of thought is that everything can be learned, and art is one of those skills that can be learned. You just have to practice. And what I've found in the last year here, when I started allowing myself the freedom to practice instead of having to think that everything had to be perfect right away, my skill grew 100 times because I was actually allowing myself to learn and practice. So instead of being concerned about whether your work is good enough to share, instead look at it as, what can I learn? What can I ask people to help me with? That sort of thing. And you will find yourself with a lot more freedom regarding your artwork. Number 4 is you are not competing with anyone else. This goes back to number 3, where I was talking about whether you have a mindset that says that you're only as good as a certain level of talent or whether it can be learned. you're not competing with anybody else. And competing with other people is only going to make you stressed and frustrated. The only artwork you should be competing with is the last one that you just did. Point number 5 is to look at others' artwork as inspiration instead of competition. If you look at the artwork that you see on the different pages on social media and that sort of thing as something to inspire you to learn something new, to try something new, that sort of thing, you will find yourself so much more free to enjoy your artwork. And that's what I really do when I look at other artists' work. I have some that I love to follow on Instagram and on Facebook and YouTube and that sort of thing. And someday I would love to be able to paint like them, but that doesn't mean that I'm looking at their artwork as with jealousy and like, oh, why can't I do that? I look at their artwork as inspiration. It inspires me to learn more, to try more, to try new techniques, to play a little bit with texture, that sort of thing. So stop looking at other people's work as competition and instead look at it as inspiration. So I hope these 5 points have helped you and will give you a freer, more fun time with your artwork. And we will talk to you again soon.